because you can go 7 weeks without anybody running a show. And suddenly everybody you've ever worked for wants to run the same night.
Right.
You're one person, 5 places. You can't be 5 places at once.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and the shows are scattered, say an afternoon show and a night show, you might be able to do two in one day. Sometimes even three if you're really lucky.
Right.
But it's impossible to be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
And that can get you a lot of heat. It got me a lot of heat. Um, Going back to Hendersonville, I got my start a promotion called High Velocity Wrestling. They ran every Saturday, and they wanted you there every Saturday. There was not a dollar to be made in Hendersonville, North Carolina. They would keep you there every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just looked at it as it was a place to go, um, because you knew it was always going to be there.
Yeah.
I was starting to get booked other places because HVW is where I got my start. That was the first promotion that used me as an announcer down here after I moved. And eventually started meeting people and they're like, hey, this guy's good. Let's give him a shot. And I started getting booked elsewhere. And first time, and I love the story just because of how absurd it is. First time I got heat was secondary heat, actually. It was because of the Goonies. There was a message board. There were a couple of different message boards, but my best friend, BJ Hancock, was very vocal on one of the boards about, the direction that he was going with his character. He was supposed to have a title run at one point that was changed because he couldn't be there the following week. So this was the thing. The promoter at the time was a champion, and we were going into a big show. It was supposed to be a triple threat. Him, BJ Hancock, Stony Hooker. Uh, and they decided, well, BJ's doing well. It's his time to run with the title. Well, the following week, he was supposed to be at another show elsewhere. I don't remember exactly where. So they said, well, we got to scrap that. We'll put the title on Stony instead. Stony was going to that same show BJ was. So neither of them were going to be there the following week. And the promoter wound up keeping the championship. Um, which, and I love how Bruce Pritchard refers to this in his podcast. It's a prop. Belts are props. It's just, there's no significance. Kind of, I'm going to probably get a little heat for saying this. The 12 awards that I have, they're great recognition. I love the fact that somebody thinks highly enough of my work to want to honor me with it. But it's never helped me get another booking. It doesn't put an additional dollar in an envelope.
Yeah.
It's just a nice thank you, a pat on the back. Good for you.
Yeah.
Um, Not knocking any of the awards that I've received. I'm grateful for all of them. Running out of wall space. Let's start taking these to work. But back to the story. BJ was vocal about the direction that the company was going in. And one day we're sitting there in the locker room getting ready. And HVW had two locker rooms at the time. There was like an office, and then there was like a secondary locker room. But we always did our big meeting in the other office nearest the entranceway. So you had sometimes 25 to 30 guys crammed into this little like living room basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular day I was sitting off against a wall writing my notes out for the show. And since there were so many people shoulder to shoulder, BJ decides to sit on my lap for the meeting. And that night all of the Goonies were supposed to wrestle each
That
other.
was his benefit, right?
Sure, sure. It was the only padded seat in the building. I have big thighs. They're soft. Um, so the meeting is happening, and the promoter, Gary Viper, whatever you want to call him, I like promoter because it's less, personal, says, all right, tonight these four are going to wrestle each other. It was Mike, Derek, Rocky, and BJ. And he said, and tonight's going to be their last night at HVW because they're no longer welcome here. And at that point, everybody's heads turn to BJ, who's sitting on my lap. And I'm just sitting there, jaw on the ground, realizing that 4 of my best friends have just been told,
Get
you're
the
not
hell
welcome
out.
here anymore. Which is funny because you got fired from somewhere you're not getting paid to be. Um, After the meeting, I walked out to the ringside area to finish writing my notes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I needed to be away from the locker room. And while I'm writing my notes, promoter comes and sits down beside me. Not really somebody I wanted to talk to at the moment. And he said, so I guess since they're leaving, you're going to be leaving too. And I turned and I looked at him, and I took some advice from a boss I had years ago. And I told him, I'm not going to make that decision right now. I need time to think about it. Let me get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because years earlier, I worked at a restaurant, and one night we got hit with a dinner rush early, and we weren't prepared for it. And by chance, our area director was in town that day, and he wound up in the kitchen helping me get caught up. Well, my boss didn't care for that. And after the rush calmed down, he looked at me and he said, you and I need to talk tonight. And I said, shit, I'm going to get fired tonight. The end of his shift came, and he got ready to leave, and I said, you wanted to talk. He goes, not tonight. We'll talk later. This was Good Friday. I'll never forget this. Next day I saw him was Easter Sunday. We went through shift normal. I walked up to him and I said, Scott, you wanted to talk. We'll talk tomorrow. Now you're just getting extra shifts out of me. So Monday comes and he says, you got a minute? I said, yeah. Sits me down. He says, do you know why we didn't talk Friday night? I said, no, sir. He said, if we would have talked Friday, I'd have fired your ass. I went, okay. He says, do you know why I didn't talk to you Sunday night? No, sir, I don't. He says, I didn't want to fire your ass on Easter Sunday. Thank you. I appreciate that. He said, now it's a couple days have gone by. I've had time to cool off. This is what needs to happen. Future reference.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stuck by that for, gosh, 12 years now, by that theory. If I'm in that situation, I need time to cool off and think with a clear head.
Right.
So I went home the rest of the weekend and I thought about it. And that Monday, I gave my notice. I said, I'll tell you what, you've got a big show coming up in February you've been hyping, because this was December, maybe January ish.
Mm-hmm.
I will stay through there, give you time. It's like 5, 6 weeks to find a new announcer.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I worked every show that I was supposed to be there for. Now, fast forward to May. I was in the area for something. In fact, I think one of the wrestlers that was in that area or was working there wanted to meet for dinner or something. And by chance, the crew was having, they were coming back from a show. They were bringing the ring back.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard they'd done some remodeling to the building. So I'm like, all right, I'll come check it out. And I got asked if I'd come back again. I didn't want to come back. I was reluctant, but I said, okay, you've sold me that it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there's a picture that you mentioned to me before the show, or before we went on, and I'm going to bring it up because that was one of the first times I came back. We did a show in, I think it was Burnsville, North Carolina. I may be wrong on the town, but the town's insignificant. It was what we call a road show, where you're not where you usually are.
Mm-hmm.
And that night we did a battle royal. I love battle royals because I can get in there, do a couple stupid things, go over the top.
Right.
I've actually won a couple battle royals, which I shouldn't have, because I'm not a wrestler, but it was entertaining. And in fact, it was the first time I ever became a heel, was winning a battle royal. Same company that we're talking about now. But we did this battle royal, and I got tossed. It was time to go,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm laying there on the ground, and I look up, and I see B.J. Hancock standing on the apron right by the turnbuckles, and I just looked at him, and he looked at me, and he smiled, and I went, oh shit. Because I realized he was about to give me a Mick Foley elbow.
Right.
In fact, I'm pretty sure he got a running start and yelled Foley and did the flying leap and dropped the elbow on me. Which, if you look at the picture, I am in mock horror, but also marking the hell out because Mick Foley is one of my favorite wrestlers,
Right.
which is one of the main reasons why he did it. There's a second picture to that. I don't know if you saw that one. It's Bojack trying to give me CPR.
Huh.
Yeah. Because as he yelled out after BJ did it, he came running, screaming, "Oh no, he buys me beer." So I guess that's kind of a funny road story too that I should have added in there. But the next day we were back in Hendersonville, and Mike McLeod, another one of the Goonies, came back, with me. I said, "See, it's changed a little. It's for the better." And we walked back into the building, and the whole day he just kept going, "I don't know about this. This is just, it doesn't feel right. Something's not right." And I said, "Mike, have I ever led you astray?" So we get to the main event that night. Mike's in the main event. His opponent has him up on his shoulder sitting on the top turnbuckle. Mike thinks he's going to get a power slam. Instead, he gets like a pile driver or something, like lands on his shoulder, separates his shoulder.
Mm.
We wound up at the hospital in Hendersonville, and they stayed the night with me in Greenville, which looking back never really made sense because they lived in Lenore and Old Fort, which was the opposite way up the mountain. But on the way home, Mike's got his shoulder wrapped up. He's still in his tights. He didn't even change out of those, which was comical. I'm sitting in a waiting room in tights. I think we finally got a blanket or something to cover him because he was sitting there shirtless. And it was really quiet on the way home. And Mike says, "So, Brett, about that never leading me astray?" Sorry, buddy. He'll still bring that up every now and then, of course, because he still has the knot on his shoulder from separating it. Because now he needs to separate the other one so at least it matches.
Right.
So that was, I went back, as I said, and a few months after returning, they got the idea to transition me from ring announcing to managing, which I think you said in the picture you noticed I was clean shaven.
Right.
That was when the goatee came in. Because, if you're a bad guy, you gotta have facial hair.
Right. Probably why I was never a heel.
Could be. Well, then you got such a baby face. And I wound up managing. And after about a month or so, I wound up helping put the shows together.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they did it was there were 4 people helping put the shows together. And all of us were basically the leaders of the groups that we were working with. So I was keeping track of what my guys were doing. Promoter was keeping track of what his guys was doing. Janie Costello was keeping track of what his boys were doing.
Was Abbott
And
with him?
no, no, it's a good point though. So you had 4 guys working on what I'm going to let it slide. But hey, I bet I hate that guy. So there was a lot of conflict because we always clashed over what was going to go on. And as we get into 2008, we had a big tag tournament to start the year, which was fun to try to book because you had other people that had legitimate heat that you had to try to keep separated. So we'd fill out the brackets and we'd look and go, "Oh shit, that would mean these two have to, nope, scratch that. So we have to move over here."
Mm-hmm.
So all this working to try to get this out of the way. And everything looked like it was going to go towards our group winning the tag titles at some point. And it didn't happen in the tournament. They went a different direction. And it came time for the next big show, which I had already had a prior commitment elsewhere, and a couple of the other guys did. And we were told, "All right, so next week in the big show, we're putting the tag titles on you." What? What do you mean you're going to put the titles on us? We're not going to be there. We
Yeah.
told you months ago we were going to be at this other show.
Right.
And at that point, I was told to get the guys, get our stuff, and get out because we weren't going to make them a priority.
This is the same company that's not paying
That's
you.
not paying me, that's running every week, in front of the same 15, 20 people every week. Um,
Way to bury a promotion there, man.
Trust me, they did it on their own afterwards, but that's different stories for different days.
Do they still run
No,
or no?
nope. Not since they had their extravaganza show where nobody got paid, and you had about 8 names on the show. I can't say that they didn't get paid, but they didn't get paid what they were supposed to,
Right.
which isn't good business.
Right now.
Um, I went after that second time. I made it a point to go out of my way to avoid just being around that guy.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. If I have a problem with you, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't want anything to do with you. It's my way of coping with things. You can't get pissed at something you're not around.
Right.
And every now and then we would pop up on the same shows together, and I would, good to
Right.
see you, walk away. Even if you try, we need you back. No, you don't need me back. I'm not going back there. Not going to happen. And that went that way for a long time until I went to Jay Eagles one time for Thanksgiving. He did a show on Thanksgiving night. I had the night off. I'm like, I'll go check out a show. Go out to the back, and there's Chief and James McCone. Oh, Brett, good to see you. Good to see you. I said, if you got a spot, I'm up for it. If not, I'll just enjoy the show.
Right.
James McCone looks up and down the card. Back and forth. All of a sudden he goes, I got it. We're going to put you with cyanide against Viper. Okay. Now, every match on this show for Thanksgiving was inside of a steel cage.
Oh Lord.
And Chief's cage surrounded the ring. It wasn't like against the ropes.
Yeah.
So there was room. So I was going to be inside the cage
Right.
with Viper, a guy I've had heat with for a year. And James knew this. James went from Spartanburg to APW Chester that night where BJ was wrestling. And he says, you're going to love what I did to Wolverton. He was bragging about it. And I looked at it and I went, okay, so now I've got to be in a cage, somebody I don't like. I know there's people out in the crowd that know me and know our history. I'm going to have a little fun. I went up to Chief. I said, Chief, who's winning? Oh, Viper's going over. All right. Walked over. I said, Gary, got a second? Yeah. I said, putting you with cyanide against you. And he kind of looks at me like, uh-oh. I said, I got an idea. He goes, what? I says, you're going over, right? He says, yeah. He says, I'm going to take a Viper Bomb tonight. It's his finish. He looks at me and says, you're going to what? I said, yeah. I says, you're going to win? I'll come in. I used to carry a briefcase at the time. I'll take the swing, miss, turn around, up and down. Are you sure about this? Yeah, I'm sure. All right. I'm pretty sure we went out first. And when Viper came through the curtain, I saw his wife and I saw fans that knew us all look at each other and go, oh shit. So the match starts, and Chief's cage was so tall that it was brushing up against the light fixtures. And at one point, they were fighting out on the floor, and they hit the cage.
Oh Lord.
One of the light bulbs shatters. Now I'm looking, going, I'm in a cage. The guy I don't like. Glass all over the ring.
Right.
All right.